And the Bucs hope that this will be their first victory ever.
We have a great area, a growing area, in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakeland, and Winnehaven, and even Wachoo. Over 2 million fans, and it's the fastest growing area in the United States.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, live from Tampa Stadium. For the first time ever in a regular season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers entered the stadium with numbers in both the win and loss columns. The Buccaneers came onto the field to a wild standing ovation from the some 60,000-plus fans at Tampa Stadium. They did not introduce any players individually. The PA announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers."
Welcome to San Diego, California, Super Bowl 37. It is Tampa Bay versus the Oakland Raiders.
Third down, 18, dropping Gannon, looking Gannon, throws up in the head, intercepted at the 40, Derek Brooks 30, Brooks to the 25, Derek Brooks all the way, there it is, the dagger's in, we're gonna win the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucs tomorrow. Holy hell.
Everyone always says, why the Bucs, man? Why do you choose the Bucs? And it was a no-brainer.
Brady has all kinds of time, throws toward the end zone. It is a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Brady to throw, throws a deep pass downfield. Got Scottie Miller in the open, makes the catch. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Super Bowl 55 will be underway
At Raymond James Stadium, here's the snap out of the gun, play action fake, pass to Gronkowski, he's gonna score a touchdown, touchdown Tampa Bay, holy guacamole. Bucs are the Super Bowl champs, they can't stop the clock. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them. Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski inside the 20 to the 15-10. Gronkowski to the 5 to the 4-yard line. Holy guacamole. Here's the snap. Pressure coming from the outside. Brady throws it back. Caught ball first out of the 50. Outside the numbers 40. To the 30-yard line. To the 25. It's Perriman. Bashaud Perriman. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Bucs win in overtime.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Live on YouTube today for episode 244. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they finished the regular season with a 13-4 record, and they pretty much break all the records on Sunday as they defeat the Carolina Panthers 41-17. Just a great game, man. We normally do our post-game podcast a couple hours, if not like an hour after the game ends, but I was in attendance last night, had some stuff I had to take care of after the game, so here we are. Happy Victory Monday, ladies and gentlemen. Evan, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Yeah, it was a good game. Obviously, a little bit of a slow start. We'll have to we'll get into it. We'll get into everything. We won't just talk about the game. We'll talk about a little bit about because now we do know the Bucs playoff opponent. We know what day they're playing and everything like that. So we'll get into it a little bit there, not too much, because obviously we will have a game preview show coming out later this week. But yeah, excited to get ready.
Yeah, man. And what a way for the Bucs to wrap up the year. As I mentioned, plenty of records to be broken. Let's just start going down the list of some of the guys who stood out. Tom Brady, the quarterback, first and foremost. 29 for 37, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tom Brady finishes this season with a career high in passing yards. He throws for over 5,000 yards. Becomes, I think, one of only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history to have multiple 5,000-yard seasons. So he sets a career high passing yardage with the Bucs. 43 touchdowns on the season. to 12 interceptions. And I think we both can agree that half of those picks were probably flukes, but what a great way for Tom Brady to wrap up an MVP caliber campaign, if you ask me. Just, another great showing from Brady. And it was good to see because he's working with, some newer receivers out there. We'll talk in a second about Mike Evans stepping up and being that guy. Rob Gronkowski was going crazy, but some other guys stepped up as well too. And it was good to see Brady still be productive.
Yeah. It's really good, and you're right about the point you made when you said that these are the guys, right? These are the guys that are going to be in these playoff games. Like Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown aren't walking through that door. So these are the guys, and they're not going to sign unless they have more injuries this coming week and they advance. Then you might have to sign a receiver or two, but they're not going to sign any outside wide receiver to come in and play. So like these are the guys, and it was good to see them have success, even though the slow starts, have been there the last little bit. So gonna have to correct it, obviously, but it was nice to see the offense sort of get on a roll there and really be pretty efficient. You take away the first quarter, they were pretty efficient for the most part.
What was it 24 total points scored in that fourth quarter alone? I mean, it was an offensive explosion in that second half. Hey, but really quickly, before we talk about some other standouts from this game, got to give a shout out to Buccaneers legend Johnny Lynch and the San Francisco 49ers getting it done against the Rams, which means everything fell into place this weekend for the Buccaneers to officially be the 2 seed in the NFC, which we knew was going to be a process after their last loss. You knew they'd have to win out. Some other things would have to fall into place, and then San Fran would have to get it done against the Rams. They were able to do just that. And after the game last night, actually, like before the game was even over, on the Jumbotron, they were showing the San Fran and the LA game. And like there's players on the field who are just stopping to watch the game. Like Blaine Gabbert's down there trying to call an offense, and you've got the San Francisco game playing on top of them. But it was an awesome atmosphere in the stadium last night. You did get to see a little bit of Blaine Gabbert, which again speaks to the offensive production that Tom Brady was having. Glad that he didn't have to play 4 full quarters. But while we are on the topic of Tom Brady, we talked about the records he was setting. How about the incentives he was able to help everybody else out there get? Rob Gronkowski, the Buccaneers' leading receiver from yesterday. By the way, 7 receptions, 137 yards for the big tight end. He got an extra $1 million on the season. He got a $500,000 bonus once he hit his incentive. I believe it was catches on the year. And then I think he had another one for receiving yards. I'm not entirely sure what the categories were, but talking about TB12, there was a moment in yesterday's game where Bruce Arians told him to come off of the field, and he said, no, I need to get one more pass to Big 87 over there so he can make some money. And then Brady came out of the game. And I'm sure there's a certain ex-wide receiver who feels a little bit bitter about everybody hitting their incentives yesterday, but that's what happens when Tom Brady's your quarterback, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. I mean, Gronk probably would have got it either way. I'm sure they had a very similar play called with this Gabbert in, and
right.
I think Brady wanted to be the guy to throw the pass to him. He didn't reach all of his incentives, but the one was like a crazy one. I think he needed 3 touchdowns to reach his final incentive in that game, so that wasn't likely to happen. But yeah, it was nice because I think he reached the incentive for catches and for yards. I believe those were the 2. So yeah, it was a really good day. And then obviously, Mike Evans had his bright spots as well.
Yeah, man. We'll look at the rest of this receiver room. Some of the guys who stepped up. Mike Evans, 6 receptions, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I feel great about the 2 touchdowns. That second touchdown pass to Mike Evans had to have been, I think, the prettiest one he's caught all season. It was just,
I think you got to say the one versus Buffalo on that rope.
Yeah, that's true too.
I think you got to say that
too. This one was a little slower pace. You know what I mean? Like Evans was able to basically get a break. I think it was a rookie corner he was going up against. I don't remember.
Yeah, the Panthers. No, to be fair, the Panthers. The Eagles next week will have better corners than the Panthers did today. It's just Mike Evans just dominated them, but not a fair matchup there for that corner.
But Mike got a step on him, ended up in the end zone. Brady just floats it right up on top over his head, and when Mike can barely turn around and just bring it in like that, those are the prettiest to me. But hell of a day for Mike Evans. I will tell you though, he got that catch for 1,000 yards, and immediately was on the ground for an extended period of time. And when I tell you, like, that stadium, that was the quietest that stadium was the entire game. And it was very similar to 2020, where He gets his 1,000 yards. The very next day, they try to force it to him in the end, or the very next play, they try to force it to him in the end zone. He comes down awkward on his knee. He's on the ground for an extended period of time. Luckily, that was not the case this week. He makes the catch. I guess his funny bone hit somebody's helmet and it like busted him open. So it was kind of a scary moment because he landed on the ground and he's looking at his hand and you can tell he's just trying to like grip something to see if he can get some feeling back in his hand, because I know between you and me both, we have both in the past probably hit your funny bone so hard you had to reevaluate some life decisions, right? So I can only imagine what it would have felt like bouncing off of a 250-pound NFL player. So luckily they were able to wrap him up. He came back into the game, which I wanted to get your 2 cents on, because before we started the show, we kind of talked about that, and I know you weren't the biggest fan of that decision.
Yeah, it felt like it was unnecessary. It was great that he got the 2 touchdowns. It seemed like it wasn't really something that was hampering him at all, the injury, but just an unnecessary risk to me.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like he needed to come back in the game. But it's okay because it didn't seem like he was that injured, right? Or else I really don't think he'd be out there. Like I really don't. Contrary to popular belief, the Bucs do not send injured players out there when they notify them that they're injured. But
yeah, believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In the situation, he got his 1,000 yards. He did it in a good way, but it was a questionable way because you didn't know like what it was, right?
Yeah,
and maybe it was a funny bone. It looked, at first maybe it looked like a hand injury. Maybe
I thought he like dislocated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean, if he did that, he might have been able to play next week, but it would have been doing it in a lot of pain. So I wouldn't have got him. Kept him in the game, but I'm not going to make a huge fuss over it.
Hey, continuing our talk about records, though, really quickly for Mike Evans in particular, he breaks his own touchdown record for touchdowns in a single season. He sets a career high with 14. He had 13 after that first touchdown, stayed in the game, got the second one later on, and now has the record for the most receiving touchdowns in a single season in Bucs history. Not only that, Mike Evans is the top touchdown scorer in Buccaneers history. So he continues that streak. He drives that number up, and he finishes the season with over 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. What a year for Big Mike as we get ready for the playoffs. Some other receivers who stepped up. Wanted to talk really quickly about this guy, Brashad Perryman. It wasn't a blockbuster day. 5 receptions for 44 yards. He had some pretty critical catches. There was one third down that he had to convert where he had to kind of make a move, get around a blocker. And I think after that, no, maybe. Okay, no, that wasn't him. That was Cyril Grayson, actually, who left the game. But Brashad Perryman made a catch, had to get around a
Perryman
blocker.
did get a little banged up on that, but he came back in the game.
Yeah, okay, great. Love to hear that. So that play that he got banged up on, it was a critical first down at the time. And then that beautiful sideline catch. I mean, truthfully, the only thing I can possibly compare it to is like that Tyler Johnson catch on the sideline in the Saints game that we had talked about so much on the game preview last week. Brashad Perryman, he really showed up, I think.
Yeah, that was a great catch. It was a great throw. Obviously, I think the Tyler Johnson catch was probably tougher, but that's a tough catch to be able to drag your feet like that and stay in bounds and be able to secure the ball. To do all 3 things, get 2 feet down and secure the ball. It's not easy, and it was a great throw, great catch, and really, I think really sparked them. I think that play was really the play that play and the Mike Evans play that got him down from about the 10 to midfield or so. Those were the 2 plays I think that really sparked this offense.
Yeah, that Mike Evans play, by the way, we just talk about the day that he had to add this on. It was a basic slant route. Brady hits him at the perfect time. Mike makes a move, cuts a guy in open space, runs 20 more yards down the field. To me, that stuff right there, like that's vintage Mike Evans, in my opinion, because it's not like he's an open field burner, but if you can get the ball to him on a designed route where you give him a little bit of space to work with, he can run downfield. I mean, once you get all 6'5" of him moving at full speed, he's probably going to be a pretty tough guy to slow down, but it was good to see that from Big Mike. Really quickly on the receiving end of things, and then we'll talk about the run game. Le'Veon Bell, about as efficient as you can get, I guess. 1 reception, 1 yard, 1 touchdown for Le'Veon Bell. It was nice to see him get in the end zone, but it's also nice, I guess, we didn't see him get any more than 1 catch, but getting him in the end zone is a good start. Hopefully we can see a little bit of that as the playoffs grow closer. I know the Bucs are actually looking at some guys coming back at that running back position. Ronald Jones still a possibility, but Leonard Fournette expected to be good to go for next week's game against Philly. And then Gio Bernard, his status kind of up in the air. I'm curious what they end up doing with him. Have you heard anything about Gio?
No, I haven't heard anything about him.
Do you think with the recent experience, the recent reps that Bell has, they're probably going to look at him as a more viable option this time of year?
Maybe. I mean, I think it might include them, not rushing Gio back, right? I think they prefer Gio, right? Gio's the better player, like he is. There's a reason that Le'Veon Bell was kind of on the street and then got cut by the Ravens, and like there's a reason for that. But yeah, I think they don't want to rush him back. I think if they can get him back, they would put him back in there. But I don't think they want to rush him back. So I think this, Bell's production right now, specifically as a blocker, you remember on that, I believe it was the Mike Evans, the one down the midfield. Le'Veon Bell had a fantastic block on that play. So yeah, he's been good. I mean, he's been solid as a third down guy. So I think Gio Bernard, if he's able to come back in, will come back in the lineup, but I don't think the Bucs want to rush him back. And the productivity of Le'Veon Bell just helps that. They don't need to rush him back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about this run game. And I think one of the bigger storylines that we talked about heading into this game was certain guys on this offense finding a role, like finding a place where they fit. It's a new wide receiver room. There's some guys who are going to be the odd man out. And this next guy is someone who we considered the odd man out for a long time, but he may have found a little bit of a niche in this offense here. The Buccaneers' leading rusher in Week 18 was not Sneak Vaughn, was not Le'Veon Bell, wasn't even Tom Brady. It was Scottie Scooter Miller. 2 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, when you're averaging 26 yards per carry, you're probably doing something pretty efficient. And for Scottie Miller, it was that beautiful end-around play that he just executed to perfection, took it to the house. What a great play for Scottie. And I mean, I think, an end-around with Scottie Miller is something that plenty of fans had said, hey, we should probably consider this before.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you've been clamoring for, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, anytime we
not necessarily with Scottie Miller.
Dude, listen, for the real OGs of the Cannon Fire podcast, do you guys remember me pounding the table for a Deshaun Jackson end-around? And then they finally did it, and it got him a first down and more.
It was a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was versus Cleveland.
What the hell? I mean, that first drive against Buffalo, we talked about, I think the most efficient this offense has been was that opening drive, at least as far as like variety in your play calling, right? But that first drive, Mike Evans got a goddamn end around. Like he had his first career rushing attempt. But more play designs like that, I think, could be in the fold as the playoffs start to go here. And I'm glad that we got to see Scottie Miller is a little more than capable of being that guy. Now, is he going to break for 40 yards every single time? I doubt it. But it's good to see that he has the ability to do that. And seeing him like break tackles, follow his blocks, that was pretty exhilarating because everybody on that field was like twice his size. So I was very worried about what was going to happen as he closed in on the end zone. But good for Scottie to be productive again. The stadium cheered pretty loud when Scottie Miller got that touchdown. I think that was probably the loudest they were all day.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point, that touchdown didn't even matter.
Yeah,
like,
garbage
the
time.
game was in hand. Like Blaine Gabbert was in, I think, right? Tom Brady didn't hand that ball off.
Yeah.
It was Blaine Gabbert. So yeah, the game was already over. It was good for Scottie. Maybe that gives him some confidence. They ran it again and they got a first down. So, do I love running it there? Maybe not, because that might be something I'd want to maybe stash for the playoffs.
Yeah,
because now you've put that on tape. So, I mean, do I love it there? No, not necessarily. I like the touchdown one. I don't know if you need to do it again, though. I don't know if you need to do it two times. It was good to see him there. Good to see him get in the end zone. Like I said, maybe that gives them some confidence because they're going to need all hands on deck, really, no matter who it is, especially if Cyril Grayson can't go, which, he got injured, a hamstring injury. Bruce Arians said in his press conference a little bit ago that, it's not as severe as they originally thought, but it sounds like his status is going to be in question. So I don't know. I doubt he plays, honestly. So they might need a guy like Scottie Miller to step up. Who knows? And it's nice to see him get that confidence and get in the end zone there.
Oh, yeah. The other running back for the day, sneak, Keyshawn Vaughn, 10 carries, 29 yards, and a touchdown. He did get that touchdown right in front of me, which was nice. But we talked about how it was going to be a little bit of an increased role for Vaughn this week. I mean, 10 carries, it is what it is, but I'm okay with it, right? Like what did you expect, especially if they only gave him 10 carries?
Yeah, it was very pedestrian, but he got the job done, right?
Oh yeah,
he
put some
did
points
his
on
job.
the board.
Yeah, and he threw Brady threw him a pass, he caught it, right? He caught the ball. Very similar, if you remember the Chargers game when he scored that touchdown. That was a very similar play. But yeah, he looked fine. Like 10 carries for 29 yards, 2.9 yards per carry. Nothing spectacular. Like, that's below average pretty much. But if he can catch the ball consistently, right, when they ask him to. Now, unfortunately, like we talked about in the game preview show, and you were the one that brought it up first, this is probably the last time you're going to see hopefully Keyshawn Vaughn, right, for a little bit now.
Right.
Because with Leonard Fournette potentially most likely coming back, I don't know how much you're going to see Keyshawn Vaughn at this point. So,
I mean, if Keyshawn Vaughn's getting 10 carries in a playoff game, something went wrong, I think.
Yeah, I think. Or I mean, if the Bucs are up big,
sure,
who knows?
Yeah, let it look like a preseason game at the end of it. That's what it looked like against Carolina. It was again Scottie Miller on end arounds, Blaine Gabbert out there handing the ball off. Kenyon Barner came in the game. Actually, I didn't even write him down as far as rushing stats go, but I looked down at the field and I saw number 38 getting up off of the ground, and I was like, who the hell is that? Because, when you're watching the game in person, sometimes towards the end of a game like that, you can get a little checked out. So once I started seeing some personnel swaps, I was like, okay, let me jump on the Twitterverse really quickly. But yeah, everybody got involved last night. But as far as like playoffs go, I guess it just depends on the situation. But 9 times out of 10, if I see Keyshawn Vaughn has 10 carries, I'm thinking somebody got hurt.
Yeah. I mean, and hopefully, we still don't know about Ronald Jones. Still don't know about his status. So you could see Vaughn a little bit, but if Fournette comes back, I would expect him to be the guy pretty much.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, Vaughn, he ended the year on a strong note, right? Had a rough game in the Saints game, just a brutal game.
Who didn't?
True. That is true. That's a good point. And then, finish it off with some, he was good in the first Carolina game and he was pedestrian these last 2 games, but, he didn't really screw up. There wasn't many times where he said, oh, that's his fault. He's got to do that. There was a few times, but not as much. And that shows progress, I think. So, I mean, obviously I still don't know like I said, we brought it up with all like Keyshawn Vaughn's the only running back under contract for next season. Don't know if I have that much faith in him, but I think he's earned a spot on the roster. I just still don't know if you can put your trust in him as the guy who's going to be your lead back or even your second back, like your third down guy. I still think they need to figure that out. But as far as Vaughn goes personally, like he stepped up when he's needed to and done not spectacular, but he's gotten the job done.
Well, I'll tell you. Hearing you, of all people, say that he has earned a spot on the roster is a lot more credit than I thought you were going to give him, especially this time, a year ago. Back to the beginning of the season, the conversations we were having about Keyshawn Vaughn were definitely a little bit of a different tone. But I'm glad he's getting credit, right? Like you said, he's putting some good film together. You got to love that he went out there, did his job, didn't screw up. Like the last few times I saw him on the field, it was good to see that I don't have to remember back to a fumble that almost cost the team or, just a missed block. Like, he definitely has been serviceable. So that's good to see for a young guy, a 3rd-round draft pick by this franchise. Good to see him out there producing. Let's talk about the defense before we dive into the playoffs really quickly. I just wanted to recap what these guys were able to do against the Carolina Panthers. 7 sacks in total the first time they played the Panthers. It wasn't quite 7 sacks, but I will tell you, after a little bit of a slow start, this defense was pretty productive as well. You got a handful of turnovers in this one, which you love to see. But let's talk about this slow start really quickly. What do you think was the biggest issue for the Bucs defense in the first quarter? Because it seemed like Carolina pretty early had a lot of success running the ball, and a lot of the plays that were moving the ball down the field for them were short, quick passes, runs to the outside, spreading this defense out and just kind of taking advantage, something that I know coordinator Wanish over here has discussed before in a how-to guide of beating the Bucs defense.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely got to get better at it. Even I think Bruce Arians acknowledged it today that they haven't been good enough on the outside runs. Like they haven't been setting the edge well enough, and not having Levante David definitely hurts. Not having Shaq Barrett, J.C. Pierre-Paul definitely hurts. So if they get all three of those guys back, I expect it to be better. But I mean, the Panthers to start off, a lot of it was luck, man. Like a lot of it was luck on the Panthers' part. Sam Darnold gets blasted, just throws the ball up in the air, and it's caught by DJ Moore. There was another time where it happened again. I was like, okay, like, are you serious?
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be one of those, but yeah, it's really, it's nice to see him bounce back, but you got to have a better start. You don't want Carolina just march right down the field where they take 7 minutes and score a touchdown, right? That wasn't really acceptable, especially an offense like Carolina's. But I think the run defense, it's tough for me to me, going into the playoffs, I would be more concerned, and this may sound a little crazy, but I would be more concerned about the offense, because the offense is really only getting Leonard Fournette back.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like the offense is getting Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown or any of the other guys back. They're only getting one guy back.
Leonard Fournette, defense, Gio Bernard. Those are your guys.
Yeah. I mean, and Surreal Grayson, sure, like Surreal Grayson. But the defense could be getting back some of their best players. So the defense's struggles. A lot of thing I put on, like, yeah, they're missing 3 starters. Like, that's what happens when you're missing 3 starters. It looks like a team that's missing the 3 starters and probably 2 of their top 5 best players on defense, and Shaq Barrett and Levante David. So as long as those guys are back, I think the defense will play a bit better. However, they still got to get it cleaned up. Because even when those guys were in, teams were still able to have some success running on the outside, doing the quick passes. And guess what Philly's going to do? Like, guess what Philly, or any team for that matter, is going to do against you in the playoffs? They're going to try to expose your weakness, and right now the Bucs got to get that corrected.
Oh, yeah. I will say my biggest takeaway from the defense this week, we did talk about the slow start, but given the starters who they're missing, given the guys who were not out there, they were still able to come together, make some plays, save this game at times. I mean, Carolina had the lead for the first quarter. It never felt like this game was out of reach. There's been quite a few times this year where the Bucs are behind, and you kind of definitely know they're going to win. You just don't know when it's going to happen. But I thought the turnaround on defense this week really started with the 4th and goal stand. Carolina was all the way down in the red zone. I mean, they were at the 2-yard line, 1-yard line. They brought out the chain crew every single time they would run the ball and go nowhere. Ends up with a 4th and goal stand. The offense took the ball, wasn't able to do very much with it.
It's not like the Panthers have Cam Newton or anything to do that. But
yeah, right. I mean, very, very, very questionable.
That's Matt Rule.
Speaking of Cam Newton, man,
good thing Matt Rule's back in Carolina, huh?
For the first time as a Bucs fan, I got to boo Cam Newton in person, and I got to tell you, that was a great feeling. We got to saw him run onto the field. He was on the field for 1 total snap in that game, and he was booed off of the field as he left. Like, they announced that now in at quarterback for Carolina, number 1, Cam Newton, and that place booed. I mean, booed, like louder than when the Panthers first hit the field. And then as he left the field, he was booed. And as he ran into the tunnel after losing 41-17 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we booed him again. That was a good feeling. That was the first time I got to experience that as a Bucs fan. And the fact that he's playing in Carolina, his days might be numbered there, but it was good for me to finally do that. Things come full circle, right? So that was a great personal experience with me. But a couple of other guys who stepped up on this defense. Anthony Nelson, I thought, had another pretty good game. Ended up with a sack this week. I think he has 5 on the season, so that'll wrap up his regular season total. But what a second half of the season for A. Nelly out there. Big number 98 getting the job done with, shorthanded at outside linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, you can make an argument he's been better than Joe Tryon-Schwinka this year. He's been really good. And the progression that you've seen from him as pass rushing wise, he's always been a solid run defender. And he was at college too at Iowa. And I think the Bucs were hoping that this would kind of happen. I think the Bucks now obviously never expect him to be this dynamic pass rusher, but if you can get 4 or 5 sacks out of him every year, yeah, that's a good player. That's a good pick, right? I mean, that's a solid. He's not going to be a starter, but that's a solid depth pick there. And hopefully he continues it. But yeah, definitely a good start for Anthony Nelson. He's a guy who's earned it too.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Adams also made a play, that interception late in the game off of Sam Darnold. What was cool about the seats that I was sitting in, shout out to Bree D, one of our Super Chat donors, who just so happens to be my significant other. She bought me tickets to this game, and she bought me, I didn't think it was going to be the best seat in the house, but it's truly one of the most unique ways I have ever watched a football game. I was 3 rows behind the field goal post in the end zone with the pirate ship. Like I was boom right there in the middle of the field goal post. If you guys go back and watch the game, any kick that's going to that side of the stadium, I had my big goofy hat on and I was usually doing something to where I could, try and look back and remember where I was. But one of the coolest things about sitting there was like watching plays develop at a different angle. Like you weren't quite eye level with the players, but it seemed like as close to eye level as you can get inside that entire stadium. Like when Tom Brady and the Bucs were coming towards us, when Brady was in the red zone, like from 10 yards out, I could literally see his eyeballs going through his reads. Like that was effing dope, man. But that Andrew Adams interception, that was cool to watch because literally 5 yards off of his break, I got to watch him run that route better than the receiver and just jump in front of it. Like I knew about 10 seconds before it happened. I'm like, oh, that's a pick. Like he's reading Darnold the whole way, ran the route, cut inside, and he's gone. Great play by Andrew
Robbie
Adams.
Anderson. Yeah, Robbie Anderson ran. I don't know what the route he was running. He ran the wrong route. I mean, obviously you couldn't see it on the broadcast, but Sam Darnold had this look of like bewilderment. Like on his face, or I should say you couldn't see it live there. You saw it on the broadcast. Like the whole time he just looked like so confused. And Robbie Anderson, I don't know what that dude. And did you see him? It was the first and 20. It was a 1st and 20, and then he caught the ball. It was a 2nd and 7. And he points to the first down. Like, is that all this dude does?
That's what Robbie Anderson does. It's funny because they made memes out of him last time these teams played because the scoreboard says 32-6, and he's on the Bucs sideline doing his celebration because he just got a first down. I don't know what it is. Maybe he knows that his days in I don't know. Are his days in Carolina numbered?
No,
I feel like they just signed him, didn't they?
Yeah, he's got another year on his deal.
Yeah, they just re-signed. DJ Moore's a free agent though. So
no, he's not.
What?
No, he's not a free agent. Nope.
I thought it was time already for him to be a free agent.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I think he might be a free agent next year. He's a good player. Like,
he is a great player. He is a great player. Hated to see him go down in the end zone the way that he did.
Yeah. Was that right in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a pretty good angle of that then.
Yeah, it was a pretty.
You had a really good. You had a good angle of that Robbie Anderson touchdown then, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Which I know a lot of people were hating on Sean Murphy bunting. What more do you want to do? I mean, to me, you got to give some credit to an opponent every now and then.
Right.
And that was a great throw and a great catch. I mean, without interfering with him and drawing the flag, I don't know how else you want Murphy bunting to play that.
Yeah, and speaking of flags, I thought the Bucs also played a relatively clean game yesterday.
Yeah.
I think only 2
wasn't
penalties.
Many flags on both teams, honestly.
Yeah, altogether it was a pretty good, efficient game, and the Buccaneers come out victorious, just absolutely killing these guys, 41-17. So they get the sweep on the regular season of not only the Carolina Panthers but the Atlanta Falcons for 2 years in a row. They have swept those teams, so that is a good feeling considering, what the other team in the division usually does to us. So the fact that we can run the table with everybody else is usually a pretty good feeling. And part of the reason why the Bucs are NFC South champs.
The Bucs had 2 penalties. The Panthers had 1. So yeah.
2 penalties for I think like 10 yards, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't a lot. And then, the Panthers had 1, and that was the holding call. So
the other turnover I forgot to mention before we talk about this playoff matchup this week, forced fumble earlier in the game, which I think was a little more of a key moment and probably the biggest turning point of this game. I don't remember who knocked it out, but Sam Darnold kind of muffed the snap, muffed the handoff, and then went to run up the gut. Ball bounces out 10 yards downfield, and who else but Antoine Winfield Jr. there to scoop it up for Tampa Bay and give the Buccaneers the ball. And I believe they were able to get some points off of that one. So that was a big deal.
Yeah, I think, was that the No, I think they kicked the field goal. I think they kicked the field goal.
Well, I mean, any points
to make it 34. Yeah. That's when Tom Brady, I think, came back on. I think that was when he came back on. So, I mean, and also I believe Ryan Suckup seems to be okay. I know there's some concern because he had slipped on the one field goal, which obviously would have been good, but he didn't have enough leg because the accuracy was there, but he slipped. So Bruce Arians, I don't believe Bruce Arians mentioned anything. So it appears that he's all good to go.
Really quickly in the live chat, before we talk about the playoff matchup this week, Pat Riley says, if I coach the Panthers, I would move Christian McCaffrey to quarterback and then create a dual threat with my best player. Keep Darnold as a backup, and then I would win 2022 Coach of the Year.
Do you know if McCaffrey can throw the football or not?
Yeah, who cares? Who cares? Have you seen what they're doing in New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, true. I mean, and shout out to the 49ers, I guess. But not only did that lock the Bucs into the 2 seed, that ensured that New Orleans did not make the playoffs. So
yeah. Buck, what you heard, our buddy Gene checking in says, do you remember when VH3 celebrated on an overthrown football? That's what NFL.
I don't like Vern Hargraves, but his corners do that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, high school corners will do that. You know, the ball will be overthrown 20 yards downfield. And
I think they kind of do it for a joke, honestly.
Yeah.
I think, like, they know.
Maybe. I hope it's like an inside joke.
I like David Cardona's suggestion.
What do you say?
That's a good one. Coach Wanish for Coach of the Year, not going to lie.
We're going to need a lot more of those press conferences, though.
I know. I know. It's tough.
So let's go ahead and talk about the playoffs.
My media availability isn't as open as other guys. Sorry,
that is true.
I can't do that.
I mean, we also have conflicting schedules because I made a joke as the podcast started today. You and I always seem to go live whenever the Bucs have their press conferences.
Yeah, so how am I supposed to have my press conference when I'm,
it's tough. You know what I mean? The Tampa Bay media is going to have to choose to either watch Coach Wanish, his press conference, his hour-long press conference most of the time.
The one that matters.
Right, or they're going to have to watch Bruce Arians.
The other guy.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, you know. The playoffs are here, man. The regular season is over. This is our first podcast officially of playoff season, and the Buccaneers, getting the 2 seed, have earned themselves back-to-back home playoff games, which is obviously the best-case scenario when you're going to have to play Wild Card Weekend and the 1 seed runs through Lambeau. You want to stay away from Lambeau as long as you can, and staying in Tampa Bay where it is nice and warm is a great way to do that. But the first-round matchup has been set next Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. From Raymond James Stadium, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will host the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that they have already played in the regular season. And the last time these two teams met in the playoffs, Rondé Barber sent the Bucs to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
Our buddy Kevin 522, one of the moderators, by the way, at the beginning of the stream, he said, Evan, we know you're a closet Birds fan, so you've got to be pretty hyped up about this week's matchup.
Yeah, I think he used the word giddy. So.
Oh, yeah, giddy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these two teams did play each other, but I would argue that both these teams are in different spots, right? The Eagles are in a much different spot. Their defense has been better. Jalen Hurts has gotten a little bit more comfortable. Their run game's really opened up, but the Bucs also in that game, they didn't have Rob Gronkowski, who they're going to have now. They didn't have Antoine Winfield, who they're going to have now. They didn't have Carlton Davis or Sean Murphy-Bunting, which they're going to have now. And also Richard Sherman got injured in that game as well and did not return. So, but the big one, they had Chris Godwin, they had Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown actually had one of his best games against the Eagles. So there's 2 losses there though that they they're not going to account for. And the Bucs also didn't have Levante David, which they may have Levante David, they may not. We don't know yet, but
yeah, it seems like
I think
as far as guys returning really quickly, sorry to interrupt you, but Bruce Arians actually confirmed today that everybody is pretty much on track to be back. Levante David's still kind of, the biggest wild card there, but everybody else that we have mentioned should be good to go.
Yeah. So Surreal Grayson probably won't play, but yeah, it sounds like Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, Leonard Fournette, those 3 should be fine. It sounds like from Bruce Arians. And, it sounds like they'll be good. And also Jamel Dean, it said they don't really know, but it doesn't seem like it's too serious either. We'll have to wait and see. The injury report comes out. Obviously they're not practicing today, but Yeah, like I said, both these teams are in different spots, and it'll be very interesting to see. I think the Bucs are naturally a better home team, right, than they are a road team. But the Eagles have been better on the road too recently. So, yeah, I mean, we're not going to talk too much about it because we have a whole game preview show to do that. But yeah, an interesting matchup and a blast from the past kind of. These two teams have not played in the playoffs since that NFC Championship game. Obviously, the Eagles have made the playoffs a bunch of times. The Bucs only made it 3 other times after that. So not many opportunities, but still, yeah, nice little blast from the past. And it seems like every time these teams played in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was always in Philly in the playoffs. Now this time it's finally in Tampa. So maybe it gets, the reverse kind of, right? Philly, yeah. Besides the NFC Championship game, Philly dominated Tampa and Philly. Now hopefully Tampa can really take it back and and dominate them.
Oh yeah, and as far as this game in particular goes, luckily the schedule makers gave the Bucs mercy. They didn't give them a Monday game or any of the late window games. Sunday at 1:00, I think, is the best time slot you could have gotten for the Bucs.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna be warm outside. I mean, hell, I was looking at the weather last night, and the coldest day that we have this week, Evan, the high is 68 degrees. That's the coldest it's gonna get.
That was supposed to be. I'm gonna look at my.
But I mean, even when you're inside Raymond James Stadium, it could be 65 degrees outside and sunny. You're still gonna be sweating your ass off. And if you're down there on the field with the humidity, I mean, it is way hotter on that field than it is outside the stadium. So luckily for the Bucs, they can also use that to their advantage. That's the great part of playing in Tampa, is that you learn to play around the heat, with the heat. So you better believe that if the Eagles show up thinking that they're just going to wear green jerseys or black jerseys, it's going to be a pretty humid day for them. And obviously, in the playoffs, you're looking for any advantage you can get.
Yeah, so right now, my weather app says Sunday's supposed to be 63 and partly cloudy. So a little chillier for Tampa standards.
It'll change. It'll change. There was a 50% chance of rain when I was walking into the stadium, and it said the low was going to be like 54 degrees. My ass, dude. I brought a hoodie in my truck, and by the time I left the game, I was sweating by the time I got done walking from the stadium.
Yeah, so like I said, we have a whole pod to talk about it, but it's a nice little classic matchup. And like you said, with the 2 seed now, the only time the Bucs are gonna be heading to Green Bay is to play the NFC Championship game. So that is a big bonus there that they were able to land that 2 seed. And like I said, they're a different team at home. So the scenario is basically the Bucs are the 2, they're playing the 7. I believe the Cowboys are the 3, and they're playing the 6. The Rams are the 4, playing the 5 Arizona Cardinals. So you could see, the winner of that 4/5 matchup head to Tampa. Maybe one of them goes. It all depends. We'll have to wait and see.
Really? You said it's sorry, say it again. You said it was Rams and Cardinals?
Rams and Cardinals, yep.
Oh, come on, Arizona. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, we talked before about some of the teams the Bucs are going to want to stay away from in the playoffs, and I know playing at home is a much bigger deal in the playoffs, but this is still a Rams team that beat the Bucs at home in 2020, and they beat the Bucs pretty handily in Week 3 as well. So it's definitely a team you want to stay away from matchup-wise. So looking for the Cardinals to come to town on that one. I did have one more quick question for you, though. We talked about...
Yeah, but also, you might need the 49ers to win at that point, because if the Cardinals beat the Rams... If the Cardinals beat the Rams, the Cardinals would head to Green Bay, while the Bucs would probably play the Cowboys at home, which the Bucs have beaten the Cowboys at home, obviously. But that was Week 1, and the Bucs had a relatively healthy team, and now they're not as healthy. So we'll definafter see. But we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Dak Prescott, by the way, has been playing like a man possessed these past couple weeks of the season. 5 touchdowns,
after the slow start. Yeah, he had a slow little run there, like. Well, around weeks like 13 to 15 or so was kind of like, the defense was kind of carrying him, but now he's starting to turn it back up. So,
oh yeah, man, definitely a lot of interesting playoff matchups. One more question about this guy before we start to wrap things up here. Cornerback Jamel Dean, we failed to mention he left the game Sunday night with a hamstring injury. His status kind of up in the air for the playoffs as well.
Yeah. It's we don't know yet, right? It's a little too early. And he obviously, I don't believe he returned at all. Hopefully you get him back. But he's been good this year. He's been probably the Bucs' best corner, because honestly, I mean, it would be overall it's Carlton Davis, I think, right? I don't think there's much debate there, but this time, like he's been the Bucs' best corner so far this season. He's played the most, he's played the best.
On top of that, after a pretty slow start too. Like I remember those first 3-4 weeks of the season when it came down to, hey, you're going to have to lean on Jamel Dean for a little while. People thought we were doomed.
Yeah. So Tony says he's so glad that the Bucs didn't get the Monday Night Football game. I knew that wasn't going to happen because I knew that any team that played on Saturday, Kansas City, Dallas, and Philly, I knew they were not going to give them the Monday game because that would be too much rest. That would be too much rest. So, I knew that they weren't going to give them that game. But yeah, I mean, it's nice that it's at 1 p.m. kind of because yes, it's a playoff game, but there's not as much theatrics in a 1 p.m. game, right? We talk about, and I know this team has been better on prime time, but we talk about sometimes how this team can sometimes underwhelm when they're in the big spotlight.
Hey,
right?
I will say this is a topic we're definitely going to revisit once it's all said and done on the season review show. But I think that mentality, or I don't even know if it's a mentality, but that persona that the Bucs had of just playing like garbage on primetime in 2020, I do think we saw that.
It's changed.
Yeah, swept under the rug a little bit in 21.
It's changed. Well, I mean, what they've lost one primetime game, right? I think they went 4-1 this year in primetime.
Yeah, they lost to the Saints.
Yeah. I believe that they beat the Patriots, they beat this Eagles team, they beat the Cowboys, and then they beat the Giants. So, and they've had a bunch of games that are nationally televised too, like the Bills. The Panthers one yesterday was nationally televised. So, they've done a better job. But we'll have to wait and see. And like I said, it's all about the injury reports, right? I think the injury reports, especially for Tampa this week, are going to be a big thing. And we're going to be keeping an eye out for it. And we'll have a game preview plus a bunch of other content for you guys out, soon and this week. And we're excited for the game on Sunday. We'll be there for a post game, whether it's a win or a loss, or it's either going to be, the Bucs are moving on or the season's over. So we'll have plenty to talk about either way.
Man, oh man, I really hope they do not get bounced in the first round by the Philadelphia Eagles.
You gotta win a playoff game.
Yeah, you gotta win. We talked about this on the mailbag show last week. I think the only thing at this point that could stop this season from being a success is a first round exit. And luckily, I think the Bucs know that as well, and they want the ultimate goal. They want another Super Bowl. That's what everybody is there to do. That's why you re-signed all your starters. That was the goal from the Super Bowl parade, the boat parade. Jason Light and Bruce Arians made it well known that, hey, we're going for 2 and we ain't stopping, end quote. But ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much to all of our people in the live chat for tuning in. Our buddy Tony Baloney questions, watch party. Listen, I'll tell you. I am very superstitious.
We have obviously I wouldn't be there, but we've talked about it.
We have talked about the possibility of doing a watch party, but I will tell you, the reason we picked the Washington football game to be the watch party is because going into that, when we planned it about 8 months ahead, we said, man, there is no way. Well,
that was also when my vacation and stuff.
Oh, yeah. But we were also like, they're probably not going to lose this game. We should be able to host it. Everybody has fun. And then now that Washington game is looked at as one of the most cursed games of the season. So this season, no, we are going to be done with the watch parties, because if we do one in the playoffs and the Bucs lose in the playoffs, I will never forgive myself. Like we probably wouldn't even do a podcast anymore. That'd probably be the end of the show, right? So watch parties are definitely coming soon in the future, but probably
not for the playoffs.
Not for the playoffs. Sorry, man, but would love to have you guys out there, and 100% we'll have one in the works for next year, if not multiple, because we have the ability to make that happen. But appreciate you asking about that one. Sorry I had to address it, but it is what it is. Playoffs are here, baby.
It's a watch party. But the Bucs are playing home games, so go to the stadium.
Yeah. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for watching. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show, and of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, Rhettakus. If you follow me, I will follow you back. The postseason is here, folks. We'll talk to you a little later on this week with a special edition of the Cannon Fire Mailbag Show. If you want to get your takes and questions in for that, hit us up. The line is always open. cannonfirepodcast@gmail.com. You can also message us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to leave a comment on this video with a specific take and or question, we'll make sure we address it on Wednesday's Mailbag Show. We'll talk to you later. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. And actually, if you're over on our YouTube channel, we should have some great content for you between now and then. Subscribe if you haven't. I am Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.